Now for the next person. Who would like to go? And
Well, thank you, Dennis. Basically, the things that you did is you returned to nature. We do have an issue with the agriculture in the US, and the soil has been over chemicalized, and so now it's more dust than it is a healthy soil. So the biodiversity in the soil is gone. So there has to be ways to get that soil back into its state of producing healthy food. So I'm kind of hoping that with this coronavirus and everybody having to take an assessment and feel how their food affects their body, because now people are in panic mode. I went and stocked up for a month, and I did as you say. I have my fresh foods, and I know what's going to go bad, and I know if it's going to get bad, I have to cook it and freeze it. And I think that people are so used to just picking up food in a fast fashion that now we really have to think about, okay, I need to supply my food and figure out how to manage the food. So I'm hoping that some good things are going to come from this. I just go back, and everything that you said is the same thing. The biodiversity of the soil is going to give us better food. The biodiversity and the cleanliness in the lakes and oceans and streams and water will give us the fresh, clean water that we need. Once we have clean water and healthy soil, I think everything else is solvable.
okay, Kurt, would you like to go ahead?
Yes. So the first part of your section there, Dennis, you're speaking about provisions, and obviously that's a main concern right now, especially with the sequestration of everybody around the world. I was just thinking in the past couple of days, I am able to stay where I'm at for about another 8 or 9 days, and then there's another person moving into the unit that I'm in. So I'm looking for another place to go. And as I'm taking stock, I realize I bought a lot of food over the past week to last me what I thought was going to be till the end of the month. And now it looks like I've overbought. And I don't know where I'm going to go next, but certainly my fresh fruits are my main concern. My fruits and vegetables, and then whatever other things I need in the fridge, my almond milks and things like that. And so it's just started to come to me about looking, well, because I'm foreseeing possibly living out of my tent. It's not a have to, but it's an option I have. And as long as Florida weather holds, I'll be okay. Just looking about how can then I survive functionally and eat well, given what I foresee as my next stop. So your comment about provision struck home this morning, because that's exactly what's going on in my mind. But it recalls to me, as you know, I was in Panama for a couple of weeks and came back a week ago. And where we were was in a very isolated part in northern Panama. It was either in or right next to a large national park. And there were about 700 people on site for the gathering. And there were 3 sets of vendors. There were some indigenous local people who had small stalls that were built for them. And they provided us with local cuisine based on all local ingredients. Some of them even served up lobster because they could get it from a couple of miles down the road. People would bring it in every day. But we didn't have a lot of access to the outside. So whatever provisions were brought in, us 700 people had to rely on what the event could bring for us, other than coconuts or maybe what we could catch out in the rough surf. But other than that, we were pretty much at the kind mercy of the food vendors. And they did a very good job of provisioning it. I happened to get out of there 2 days before they put in the sequestration for this event. And fortunately, they were able to stay there. The government wanted to shut it down, but they said, look, we're an isolated place. We have no cases. We are somewhat self-sufficient other than food. But from what I've heard from friends, the food changed. Obviously, the vendors didn't stay if they were local in the country. And so then it became of real concern. So here we have 700 people, and of course it whittled down, I think, to about 300 that ultimately didn't get out in time. And just thinking about the provisions that they've had to live with, as I mentioned, or I was about to mention, a couple of my friends I'm still in contact with there, and they said, yeah, the food supply has changed quite a bit. There's not the general commissary that had 6 or 8 different buffet dishes, all of them locally sourced and all of them very healthy. But nonetheless, there was a big kitchen working, and now there's not. Half of the local food vendors have gone. So there's 2 or 3, and some of them don't even have access to provisions that they would have had in order to provide services to whoever's there to purchase them. So I'm kind of rambling on this because I think we're all feeling our way through. Where the hell are we going? We've been at this sequestration for a week or less, and cabin fever and panic and all the other nonsense has already showed up even before the sequestration. And as we get more into it, and we're living alone, and so many of us don't have a source of growing food, those of us that live in or near condos. So the bigger question is, how do we create provisions for the coming weeks and months, however long this is going to last? And we know that things are getting even tighter and tighter as far as people being able to serve the general population with food and other provisions. So I think it's a great question. I don't have an answer, but I'm speaking from my own experience, and I think we all are. We all have to deal with this now, and it's something that we've taken for granted for so long, which is why we have the food industry that we have, is because people no longer care about their food. They just want something easy. I'm saying this, of course, as a generalization, but that the ag industry could take such a big role in our lives because we've given up our power to grow our own food and even our own power to run our own diet by what's important to us. So I think not only what are the food sources that we have, but how can we provision them moving forward is going to be critical, especially those of us that live off of fresh fruits and vegetables and stay away from pretty much anything canned or packaged or produced in a box. So I'll just leave it there as this is a critical question for all of us at this time. Not only what we can find to eat, but does it serve us? And then how can we keep it to sustain us over extended periods of inability to go and shop and get fresh things? So I'll leave it there.
And I just make a little comment there. I think that's brilliant. The fact that there's no food on, or the food selling out and all of the supplies are becoming in short supply, and there's no continued production from China or whatever. This might be just a perfect glimpse of an impending future where there is nothing in perpetuity. Collapse of civilizations happens so quickly and so easily. Economic collapse, oil collapse, or whatever. Any one of those things could create a desperate situation where if you're not growing your own food, you won't survive. So basically, communities need to come together and need to get together with like, if you live in a block of flats or something, and say, hey, we've got all this land, let's start doing something. Yeah. Permaculture, natural agriculture, use these techniques and at least create a buffer. There are many, many techniques. It all depends on the will.
To that point, and I think you're absolutely right there. As Diane knows, here in Broward County, there are a number of organic farms and a food co-op system that's been struggling to get on its feet for a decade now. I think I'd mentioned before, I have some friends that run an organic farm called Tree Amigos. They're an offshoot of what used to be Tree Huggers, which was an organic farm that produced a fair amount. And they send out emails regularly now. Of course, this is a great time for them to be doing that. But they said, look, we have to shut down on Sunday. Now, I didn't get the reason why. If there's an essential business growing fresh food, I don't know. But they've set up a plan this week. It says, look, you can order these things online from us, fresh greens, the potted plants, the seedlings, whatever it is that you want to do. Place your order, pay for it with PayPal or whatever other systems there are to collect money. And we'll have a box waiting for you between this hour and this hour for you to come pick it up. There will be no human contact. There's no money exchanged. And here we have our fresh gardens growing. We're picking the kale, everything else that's available that they grow. And that isn't even, from what I'm guessing, allowed at this point. And it boggles my mind that here's a system to allow people to get fresh and healthy food that they're shutting down. And even though they've come up with solutions to overcome, the social distancing aspect of it. So I agree with you. We absolutely need a lot of the land that's out here in Broward County. Some of the horse farms that don't need the extra paddocks and stuff, start to put in gardens. Let's grow some stuff. This is a wonderful state to be able to do that. Allow the people with the backyard fruit trees to find a way to get their stuff out to market on the sidewalk. So there are many ways that we as a community can even work with what's locally that we've been, again, nodding at for 10 years. And now it's like, it's time. We don't have the luxury of arguing or positioning or anything else anymore, or even fighting the big food co-ops that won't let us in.
There's a woman in England that created the edible city, Pam Warhurst, and she's on TED Talks. Great time to watch that. But I want to hear what Austin has to say.
Go ahead, Austin. It's all yours.
Well, you're too kind. I appreciate you guys for listening and wanting to hear. I want to comment on a couple of things and talk on a couple of points. I may share my screen too. Currently, I heard biodiversity in soil. I have a good friend and kind of a mentor to me who's a biodynamic organic farmer. He's been doing it for years. And he lives in Massachusetts. And so basically what that means is he farms with the stars. Every plant has a star. So I thought that was pretty cool. And Kurt, thinking stars, I'm thinking tent. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to go out and be able to go into a tent without having to worry about whether you're going to be able to have a roof over your head when you get back? So yeah, all this, I believe, does come together with having clean water, soil, and us working together as a community to have those provisions. And I think we have abundance. It's just the mentality of, why do we think we don't? Why are we programmed? Why we don't? And so I want to check out the Tree Amigos, because I thought that was amazing. Organic farm. I want to see their emails. That was the one thing I wanted to comment on from you guys, because I really got a lot out of that, and I'd like to learn more about what you guys are involved in. Let me start with this. Why? That's the word. If we find out the why we're doing something, which we obviously already have, then the how and the what will fall in place. Actually, the how will come and the what won't even matter, because we'll know what to do. So I had, in high school, I'm 27 years old now, gotten together with a group of friends. The idea, Neo-Sprout, which I had discussed earlier, came from sitting next to somebody in the lunchroom that was eating alone and self-isolated, and to be able to bring people together and say, why don't we just include everybody? And so it developed over time into this, well, there's so many people in action. There's a solution to every problem. So many people in action of solutions. Why can't people find these solutions? What's missing? And so I spoke over time through the years as I grown with self-development, researching, and understanding. I grew up on the Caloosahatchee River. Most of you are from Fort Lauderdale, it seems. And I watched it turn from clear to black. I used to swim in the river. It was fun. We would stand on the sandbars, visit the islands that are on the river. Now you can't. I wouldn't touch my foot in there. And so it's just, over time, just built up this suspense of passion. Why isn't anybody doing anything? Then all of a sudden, it started coming out all over the news, the media. I'm sure some of you are familiar with Sioux Tribe up in North Dakota with the Dakota Access Pipeline, what went on there. And if you don't, go ahead and look it up. I don't want to get into that right now. We could go on for hours, like you said, Dennis. But Neo-Sprout, the vision is really to bridge the gap between, well, you guys that are in action, which is a part of that, and people who want to be in action. So me as a volunteer, I want to duplicate what I do into one person at least, so that they can learn how to do it and then do the same. Keep it very simple-minded. So Bob was supposed to be on tonight, is an example. I'm going to have to follow up with him to see if he's okay and everything. But one of the organizations, nonprofits that we're putting together is with Bob. To explain a little bit of what he does a little later, he is in the food development, aquaponics, teaching people how to grow their own food, creating a kind of university. He calls it a communiversity. where the community is learning how to grow food and working together to keep the land. He's repurposing a golf course right now here in Lake County to be able to build this. So it's a new way of thinking, a new environment for people to get involved in, a new atmosphere. I'll get in a little more of that later, but first I want to kind of demo what I'm talking about. Kat Chase, I mentioned her earlier while we were talking before. This is just kind of the homepage. You have the hub, Chamber of Nonprofits, about us, keeping it simple. We want it user friendly. It's going to become an app. I'm going to go to the About Me here. It's still under construction. We're looking at duplicating it to 150 locations, having 100 plus partners. It starts with one. We're very strong believing in the compound effect. Keeping it simple, a fourth grader can do it. So that's the idea. So I kind of read you this in the beginning, just to keep it simple. Just because I want to be able to listen to you guys and not have to worry about thinking what I'm going to say. And so this is Kat Chase. The idea started kind of with her. We sat down at a meeting. Not sure if you can see and read the words, but we sat down at a meeting and I asked her, she was one of the ones that is involved in so many different outreaches for nonprofits. Right now she's on the board of One Tree, planting trees. She is a videographer. So if you're looking for a videographer who can fly a drone, she'd be one to contact. And many different Calusa water keepers, we were discussing that earlier, who's also another outreach for clean water and cleaning up our rivers. She had the idea with a couple of friends before we met, and this is how this kind of duplication works. She had an idea, oh, let's just make it happen. There's a solution. She come up with the idea of Chamber of Nonprofits. So a little bit about that, if you can read this here. Our goal is to unite different organizations and causes. There are so many nonprofits that it may seem overwhelming with where to start. We make it easy. We found all the groups in the local area, organized them based on cause, and created a calendar so you can quickly find events, so people know where to go. So we click on that, and there's a link on the homepage, so it makes it easy to get to. And you can choose your nonprofit. What do you want to do? Do you want to advocate for sustainable solutions, health and wellness, earth, water? And you click on the event, you find the color. And right now, this is what it looks like, but it will be more in-depth and easier to read. And you click on the calendar. That's it. Now, before you do that, you want to know what you want to do. So an example, water, because I'm big on water. I'm working with a nonprofit called Ocean Blue Project. Richard Archbury and his family live in Oregon, and he started it with his son because they saw this pollution in the river, and they started cleaning it up. So you can read on that, read what he's about. That's not what I want to talk about today because we're talking about food. That's just an example. So I'm going to go back to the homepage here. That's just an idea of how to demo what we're working with. We're talking about food. So in that case, the earth, the food, the sustainability part of it. I'm going into community. You have things and places. We can get into that a little later, maybe another day, for raising funds. But we're going to go into community here. And see, you have a Chamber of Nonprofits if you want to get involved in volunteering. These are some of the advocates that have big projects they're working on. And these are the people, before I explain that, let me explain this. The one intern that I'm looking for to start before I move on to a second to duplicate is to be able to, one, have integrity and honor, and to be able to be responsible and take responsibility into working with the people that they are representing. This is one of my good friends. He helps raise funds. This is Esther Miner. You might have met her. She is an advocate for the Coalition Against Human Trafficking. And she is a survivor herself, and she has overcome and is teaching young people how to overcome. This is Richard Archbury. I told you a little bit about him with the Ocean Blue Project. These are projects that people can get involved in. Bridging that gap. There's Kat again. And this is the guy who was supposed to make it on tonight. I'm going to have to talk to him. This is about the food. If you can read, can you guys read the paragraph here? Is that visible?
Yes, it is.
Yes. Okay. All right, so Robert Eden is building an aquaponic, organic university where people can learn how to grow their own food and be able to duplicate his model that he's developed with other people. He has grants in New York, California, Georgia, Chicago. All he's telling me it's coming together to be able to duplicate this model. So it's got momentum. And enlighteneducationcoop.org is actually one of his older websites. He's looking for somebody to redevelop it, come see his blueprints, come look at the golf course to repurpose it, etc. This is in Lehigh Acres, Florida. So I will definitely, after I'm done talking here, send you the contact in the text so you can kind of copy that down and get a hold of him. He definitely wants to hear from you and your ideas to be able to duplicate and make this a reality. He's got grants and funding, but that's not enough. He's looking for more momentum to be able to make it happen now. So right now, it's probably what he's doing. He's probably in a meeting. So that was the idea of Neosprout, the research that went into it a little bit, and specifically just narrowing down on in action this guy for today. Because you mentioned food, this is a discussion about provisions and making it available for everybody. If everybody learned how to make their own food and have good habits, cleaning water, somebody can teach. He's looking for teachers, architects, etc., to build this, and he'd be a great guy to know. So that's really all I have to say on my part right now. It definitely is a conversation over time, but my opinion, for me, I think there are solutions that we can get it done, and we need to do it because we have the technology. I threw a lot of information. Are there any questions?